Hello and welcome. During his years at the World Bank working on Africa's economic problems, this Spanish-born businessman saw an opportunity to make a difference. As his wealth rapidly accumulated, he began to direct it towards the development of human rights and democracy. This week on 101, meet the global philanthropist and intellectual Diego Hidalgo. Politics was in his family. His father was a prominent intellectual and minister of war in the 1930s, but Diego Hidalgo found himself focusing more on the financial world and economics as he studied law, business and political sciences. It was between 1968 and 1977 that Hidalgo developed a deep passion for Africa while he worked at the World Bank overseeing its projects on the continent. At the age of 32, Diego Hidalgo became the bank's youngest ever chief of division and the first Spaniard to hold such a senior position. His business activities proved to be incredibly lucrative, but Hidalgo began to concentrate more and more on his charitable interests with the creation of FRIDA, a private non-profit foundation aimed at promoting peace, human rights and human development. It's a passion that continues to drive the award-winning philanthropist. Well, Diego Hidalgo, I'm very pleased to speak with you. And it was a great compliment when King Juan Carlos the First of Spain said, that you had devoted your life. He recognized you devoting your life to helping other people and your philanthropy. What has driven you so much towards philanthropy now?
Well, the first, I moved to philanthropy when I was in my 20s because of an unexpected inheritance, and which made me think, what can I do with this money? I could spend it, of course, in yachts or very expensive things, or I could save it and try to be a very wealthy man by age 80, or I could do something socially responsible that would be making a difference in the world and change it for the better. And this is eventually what I chose, and I created FRIDA for Africa. And this was before the wave of philanthropy that has emerged with Bono, with President Clinton, and with so many others.
It's interesting because I know a lot of your focus is in trying to encourage philanthropy, individual philanthropy in Europe, which is less common than it is somewhere like the USA, for example.
Yes, but it is, coming. It is coming up very quickly as people get worried about the state of the world, and there is much more space for civil society to act. It was very difficult back in the 70s when I decided to create FRIDA, because then you bumped against a lot of barriers. But now I think that the barriers are coming down.
Is there more recognition nowadays for philanthropists like yourself? I know you recently won the Raymond Gires Prize for Innovative Philanthropy for your work with your foundation, FRIDA.
I think there is, but in fact I'm not, I don't want to be modest or even less falsely modest, but I'm really not looking for recognition. I think that in fact I have found that the less recognition you get, the more impact you have, because you get space in the picture for other people who really are motivated by recognition.
Yeah, you do tend to keep quite a low profile. It's intentional, isn't it?
It is intentional because it makes you more effective, and I really don't need it.
You're also one of the founding members and a senior fellow of the Gorbachev Foundation of North America. What's your focus there? What do you hope to achieve with that?
Well, the Gorbachev Foundation was very strong in the late 90s. President Gorbachev had read a book of mine, or was told about a book of mine, The Future of Spain, and with predictions for the world, and invited me to be a founding member. In the first meeting of the Gorbachev Foundation in Boston with many Nobel Prizes, I felt like a flyweight with heavyweights. And it was about the dangers of unmanaged globalization. So President Gorbachev said to all the Nobel Prizes, well, what are the dangers of unmanaged globalization? Some of them said lots of things, rapid transmission of economic diseases and so on. I raised my hand very shyly and I said it fosters inequality and inequity. And I was clobbered, particularly by the Chinese and Indians who said, you don't know what you're talking about. How can you say that? 30 million Indians, 20 million or 30 million Chinese are coming up from poverty every year. And I said, look, in Africa, when I was division chief at the World Bank, the average income of an European was that of 11 Africans. And now we are speaking in 1997, and the ratio has gone to 45. And if it's left unchecked, it will go to 200. And I was very pleased that President Gorbachev, when asked by the press, what is the main danger of unmanaged globalization? He said, inequality. So then he came very happily to me and said, well, you saw that I was, that I have given you credit. And I said yes, and well, he told me that he likes Spaniards very much, in addition to being convinced by my argument.
What danger is there that philanthropy has become a way for people to leave a legacy? You know, it seems like foundations are being set up regularly by so many people, and there's a danger perhaps of overlapping, of not pooling resources, duplication of effort. What danger is there of that?
I think that there is. I mean, you must not reinvent the wheel, and I think that you might consider always, when you set up a foundation, to join other foundations. This is what Warren Buffett has done with Bill Gates Foundation. I think that if you set up a foundation, first you have to follow your passion. You have to make sure that you are aiming it at a priority problem which is not covered by other people, and you have to cooperate as much with other existing institutions as you can.
Well, let's go back to your childhood, and you were born in Madrid just before the end of the Second World War. What do you remember of those early years?
Well, I remember my father. My father was 24 years older than my mother, and he was a Spanish gentleman. In fact, came from nobility which he abhorred. My grandfather was kidnapped in the 1860s by some bandits in Sierra Morena. His father, my great-grandfather, was a marquis. The bandits were eventually caught up and sentenced to death. And my great-grandfather and my grandfather asked Queen Isabella to forgive their lives. She agreed, but then they found out that the Queen had not fulfilled her promise, and the bandits were killed. So this prompted them to leave all their titles behind. And my father came from a very socially oriented family. He had been Minister of War in the Second Spanish Republic. In fact, he had promoted Franco to general, and he was a very, very strong personality. My mother was also a very strong personality on her own, and I was fortunate to have them as my mentors. I was unfortunately an only child, but I grew up in Madrid. The bad part of Madrid was, and Spain in that time, is that it was very isolated. You couldn't, it was a major endeavor to travel abroad.
Right. You mentioned, like your father, Diego Hidalgo y Duran. He was, as I say, a very strong character. And with your mother and he and you used to go on these long walks near Los Santos, the spa which your grandmother set up.
Yes.
What kind of influence did they have on you? How did they shape you?
Well, I think that this shaped me very much, because I was getting a lot of the wisdom of my father. One of the things that my father told me was, you have to swear to me that you will never get into politics. Because he was in the center. He had been, on the one hand, he was labeled as a dangerous red because he had visited the Soviet Union and had written a book about Russia, because he was in a Republican party at the Spanish Republic, and on the other hand, he had suffocated the Asturias Revolution. He had to face it in 1934. So he was in the middle in the Second World War, and that was, when you're in the center, you get hit from left and right, and he had to go into exile. So that was one of the main advices that he gave me.
Now, you say your father told you to avoid politics, but did they have expectations of you? Did they want to push you in any particular direction, you think?
My mother wanted me to be a businessman, what was called then an industrial captain. So that's why my father pushed me to study law, which I did, and he died before I finished. And then my mother was the one who directed me to go to the Harvard Business School.
Yes, that's right. You did the early studies in Madrid and then went to Spain. Now, how do you think that comparison between studying in Europe at that time and then also America, how do you think that shaped the way you viewed the world?
Well, I think that it was a very good compliment. I wrote my mother when I had been 5 weeks in the Harvard Business School. I said, Mama, I have learned more in these 5 weeks in the Harvard Business School than in the 5 years in the law school, because the teaching in Spain was still very theoretical and very sort of right-wing and very much like Franco-like teaching. So I thought that the United States and Harvard opened my eyes and taught me how to make decisions. They didn't teach me, unfortunately, how to make money.
I know you say you didn't learn much from them on that front.
I am not a very good ad for the Harvard Business School. Whenever I have tried to make money, I have generally lost it, probably because my heart was involved in the decision. But 2 or 3 times that I have made an altruistic investment, like the one I made in assisting in the creation of El País, that turned out to be a very, very profitable investment. But it was by luck, not by intent.
I'll ask you about that a little later, but what about the way you live your life now? Because you're still between America and Spain, between Boston and Madrid. How do you find that helps in your efforts to bridge the communities living on either side of the Atlantic Ocean?
Well, I really, work more from Madrid. But the reason I came for the second time to Boston and that I have a home in Boston was that in 1993 I wrote, after being at the 25th anniversary of the Harvard Business School, I wrote a very pessimistic article about predicting gloom and doom for Spain. I said globalization is going to have winners and losers, and Spain is going to be a loser, and I outlined so many problems. That evening, I had dinner with the King of Spain, who was a classmate back in the law school in the 60s. And he hit me very hard on the forearm. I still feel it. And he said, gee, boy, you are very good at bringing problems from Harvard. Why don't you go back to Harvard and find solutions? What we need is solutions. So I went to Harvard to find solutions, because that was, the best probably source of getting my thoughts together on how to solve the problems in Spain. So I have kept the base there, and this is why I go back and forth, and I have my youngest children there.
Well, Diego Hidalgo, I've got many more questions, especially about your remarkable achievements. Don't go away. We'll be back with more one-on-one in just a moment.